Welcome to Talking Wine, and today we have some very special guests. Obviously, Jolette, you know, she's head of international sales here at South Africa, which makes no sense. At Wine Cellar, keep going, that's all right. And we have Tom. Tom works for Radford Dale, and one of the cool wine brands in South Africa. And they happen to be a power couple in the industry. Been dating for a couple of years?
3
years?
3 years at the end of this month.
Okay.
Next week, yeah.
Wow. We all know Alex Dale, who's your boss. He loves Pinot and Chard. He's a real Burgundian Pinot file. He lived in Burgundy for a couple of years, for 20 years odd, and he ran a wine bar there. And you guys import Burgundian wines. And of course, the style of wines that you make at Radford Dale is certainly more on that Burgundian side. How do you explain the style of wines at Radford Dale?
Yeah, good question. I suppose, generally speaking, across the board, you know, certainly with the whites and with the reds, really, I suppose the focus is acidity and freshness. You know, rather than sort of following that sort of big blockbuster style of wine. So acidity's always been at the core of it. And yeah, these sort of two varieties are very special to Alex and to us at Radford Dale. We've been making the Chardonnay since the beginning, I think since '98. And that's obviously Stellenbosch, and then the Freedom Pinot Noir since around 2006, I think it was. So one of the sort of early expressions coming out of this region, Elgin.
Okay, well let's dive straight into the Chardonnay. What struck me about this was the mash. Just kidding. What struck me about this wine was that it's got a huge amount of concentration and flavour, but it's only 11.5% alcohol.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, well, obviously our head winemaker is Jacques Leclerc. He's been there now 10 years. He's a director of the company, and this is very much following his sort of ethos. With this vintage 2017, we found with all our whites, there's a certain freshness to them. A lot of the wine didn't go through mallow in that vintage.
Okay.
We had a nice cool summer in terms of that, and you know, Jacques picks on taste, and this is really an example of a classic Radford Dale 17. It was picked early, very much in that sort of green citrus spectrum of Chardonnay, and as a result, the alcohol came in at 11.5%. And that's the way it is. With the 16 vintage and the 18 vintage, they're a bit fuller, perhaps a degree of alcohol riper, and you certainly feel that. And we sort of love the sort of understated feel you get with this.
So between the two of you, what is your record for drinking a bottle of this at home? 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
10 days, I think we've had a bottle of this open for.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't really sell the drinkability, does it?
Well, you know, I'm always out with these wines, you know, showing and tasting, and you know, I have to say with the Radford Dale whites, it's nice to come back to it after a week. So you know, if it's half empty, kept in the food fridge, nice and cold, then it's one that can go on. But otherwise, yeah, we sort of smash it over breakfast.
Yeah, I think the thing is for us at home, because we're both in the industry, there's a lot of wine, a lot, and we can't drink it all. So that is the nice thing with the Radford Dales. Oftentimes the whites, you open them, you have some over dinner, and then you maybe try another wine. And then this is basically, when you don't have carbon, you just use this, because that stays fresh for longer than a week in the fridge.
Yeah, I love this wine. It really reminds me of Burgundy, which is the biggest cliche in the whole wine industry, but it has the acidity that can carry that Burgundian character. Probably almost more Chablis-like, because of that lean, steely sort of character, rather than a fuller Merceau. But if you like Burgundian style, I think this is definitely up your alley. And
it should age well as well.
What about the Pinot?
Right, the Pinot, well, as I mentioned, it's Elgin. Elgin, you know, respected to Stellenbosch, a bit higher up, sort of 300, 400 metres. Invariably cooler up there, more rainfall. Alex was quite keen to get into that region. Obviously, you have Hellenada, which has been going a little bit longer. Certainly famous in the South African context for Pinot.
South African, what?
South African context for Pinot.
Sorry.
And yeah, it's obviously the name Freedom. It alludes to a couple of things. Alex likes to sort of talk about how he, you know, resigned from his post in Burgundy soon after Mandela was elected, and also it's that freedom to sort of you know, to work with the variety where we want and how we want in South Africa, as opposed to, you know, with the strict regulations they have in Burgundy. So certainly that style of it, and I suppose if you're comparing Elgin and Hellenada, Elgin Pinot tends to be a little bit more stale, a little bit riper, and so it's just trying to retain that freshness, but then also chasing that sort of rare, sort of red fruit, black fruit quality you can get from Elgin, I think. I mean, how do you find it in respect to
Yeah, so I've had a bit of a more hate than love relationship with Elgin Pinot Noir. I think in the early days it used to be overtly charry and it lacked purity, elegance and finesse. Pinot Noir is about purity of fruit for me, and with time it develops those sous-bois, earthy, tertiary characters, and often a lot of the Elgin Pinot Noirs straight off the bat were very earthy, very charry, and for me that's not what great Pinot Noir is about. I think we've sort of moved on because this wine is about as pure as it comes. There's none of that really reductive, poopy character. It's just about pure fruit. So I think this wine has come a long way over the last decade, and this for me is the best vintage yet. It's really refined. It's got beautiful fragrance, beautiful fruit, and clarity, and it's exactly what you want in Pinot.
Yeah, something we work quite hard with the Pinot and with other varieties, the reds, obviously with Pinotage as well, is this idea of sort of an element of carbonic going on, whole berry ferment if you like, a bit of whole bunch, and that, again, trying to create freshness in the wine. And the two clones we work with there, 115, 777, 115 is used in fairly restrained.
Okay.
And as you mentioned, that's where they sort of get the grunt from, as Jacques calls it, that sort of earthy forest floor kind of side to the Pinot, and then 777, which we see as sort of the more elegant, more red fruited, charming sort of aspect. So it's just moving those and using those in moderation. Ferment, open top barrels, 600 litre, very soft press, basket press after that, and then it's sort of laid to rest in fairly neutral oak, older oak barrels for about 11 months.
Cool.
So yeah, not overly worked at all.
Right, so unlike the Hill & which has got primarily Pinot, they're planting primarily, focusing on Pinot. Elgin seems to have a lot of pressure to convert vineyards back to apples because there's more money in apples, maybe in nuts and so on. Is there pressure to get this fruit?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the way we operate, our headquarters are in Stellenbosch, by the Helderberg. So, this is an estate fruit. We don't own an estate. We don't own the land we work with. We've always pursued that sort of model where we have relationships with growers. Again, this grower we've worked with since 2006. And there are elements of risks with that, your security of fruit and everything else. In Elgin particularly, there's been pressure, and we did lose a couple of sites for our other Pinot, the Wine of Good Hope, where we've been forced to look further afield, like Stanford, those sort of areas. And yeah, the economics of scale there, if you're a farmer, if you're a grower, if you're getting 15, 20,000 rand a tonne for your Pinot fruit.
Which is good.
Which is good. But unfortunately you're getting about 7-8 tonnes per hectare. With apples you're getting the same price per tonne, but you're getting 80, 90 tonnes per hectare. So,
literally 5, 6 times, 10 times as much, yeah.
And I think, like most people in Elgin, the grower that we get this fruit from is primarily an orchard, an apple grower.
Price-wise?
So the Chardonnay is 295, and then the Pinot Noir 395 rand. So
a bargain again.
Again, a bargain. I mean, smashable and good value.
The Chardonnay, I think we all want to think or want to believe that Chardonnay only works in cooler areas, Elgin, Hill & but Stellenbosch Chardonnay is amazing. I mean, you guys are dialed into Stellenbosch, right?
Yeah, Stellenbosch. This is sort of around the Polka Dry,
okay.
Polka Dry Hills, between there and the Annandale Road, and it's a mature block, 25 years old, on cloverly soils. It gets a hammering from the wind.
Okay.
But yeah, it gets
the wind.
The wind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 3 kilometres from the ocean, that sort of fog space. Obviously predominantly Mediterranean around there, but we are getting a little bit of that maritime influence, and that really helps with this vineyard.
Okay.
Certainly.
Well, Tom, anyway, nice to have you here, and Joe. Power couple. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.